Canada's premiers are divided on how to negotiate against President-elect Donald Trump's tariff threats. Offense or defense, diplomacy or threats.
Well, if it comes to Alberta or Quebec, that's their choice. They believe in diplomacy. Good luck.
Nothing is off the table. We are prepared to support retaliatory tariffs and a response to the United States that gets their attention to help them understand.
I think it's a conversation to be had about the kind of strengthening that we want to do for the borders here in New Brunswick, and we're looking forward to seeing the specific details about how that's going to benefit our borders and our ports, and so there's more conversations to be had there.
The federal government says all options remain on the table, including taxes, export taxes on high-demand exports to the United States on things such as oil, uranium, and potash, something that could impact life in the prairie provinces. Scott Moe is the Premier of Saskatchewan, and he joins me now. Premier Moe, welcome back to the show.
Thanks so much, David.
You called the federal government's consideration of an export tax on things such as oil, uranium, and potash a complete betrayal by the Trudeau government of the team approach. Why do you call it a complete betrayal?
It's never been discussed, nor should it be discussed. Listen, the goal here is to not have tariffs, or if they do come on, to have them for a minimum amount of time. And we have dealt with this in the past, and I think how we need to deal with this now is to work with the incoming Trump administration on the current concerns they raise, which is border security from now until January the 20th. Engage starting on the now until the 20th and post. And always prepare for the worst. Hope for the best, but prepare for the challenge that they may come on. And never have we looked even at broad-based tariffs, let alone tariffing something that Canadians produce and what creates wealth in Canada. And so it'd be ridiculous and had never been discussed, and it certainly shouldn't be discussed at any point in time, and I'll be asking the Prime Minister for assurances that it's not being.
Okay, so you spoke to the Deputy Prime Minister, as I understand it today. Premier, did you get reassurances from Chrystia Freeland? Because presumably she has a big say in this.
We had a discussion around the importance of if you are preparing a list of countermeasures, they need to be on imports, not on products that we're exporting, and they need to be very precise and selective, as the Prime Minister has indicated in some of the conversations that we've had as well. Listen, a broad-based tariff war on imports, let alone on exports, which to my knowledge has never occurred, broad-based tariff war across North America benefits neither the Americans or the Canadians, but it does benefit some of our maybe non-allied nations in other areas of the world. And so we need to work together alongside the federal government and other premiers to ensure that we can avoid any of this talk. And if it does come, that it's going to be as short-lived as possible.
So, Premier, as I understand it, and maybe you can help clarify this for me, is that the export charges, the export tax the government is contemplating, would only happen if Donald Trump brings in the tariff, but then carves out specific sectors to lessen the pain on the U.S. economy and the U.S. consumer. And they'd only look at doing it as a retaliation. Is that your understanding of what's being contemplated? Because as far as I can tell, this is on a big list of options, but not necessarily at the top of the list of options. How do you understand it to be?
Shouldn't be on the list of options. What the goal would be is to carve out all of the items from whether it be Donald Trump's tariffs or any other tariffs. Listen, it just shouldn't simply be on the list. The goal is to reduce tariffs, not have tariffs, not to add tariffs, in particular tariffs on things that we are producing as Canadians. And so there's other ways to do this. We've proven this in the past, most recently when we were discussing the steel and aluminum tariffs that the previous Trump administration had brought in. We've had done something similar and very precise going back to under the Stephen Harper's government. Jerry Ritz had brought in some very precise tariffs on imports when we were battling against the country of origin labeling as well. And so there's other ways to do this. Punishing Canadians and betraying premiers and Canadians working in these industries, and all Canadians, certainly is not what we would be asking for. And I'll be asking the Prime Minister to ensure that these types of export tariffs are just simply not under consideration, nor should they be.
I appreciate your point that last time around with the Section 232 tariffs on steel and aluminum, they were specifically targeted and specifically targeted in response. But what's on the table now is an everything tariff, right? Everything crossing the border into the United States. So if the government of Canada has a public say, we won't consider cutting off uranium, we won't consider cutting off oil, we won't consider cutting off this, does it not weaken its hand if it's not prepared to at least have the pretense of putting everything on the table at this point in the negotiation cycle?
No, it certainly doesn't. There are other ways, and each of those times it did work because there were certain areas, certain regions, certain policymakers that were actually targeted with the tariffs that were there. Further to that, long before we ever get to any tariff discussion or any short list discussion, there's some other work for us to do. Let's secure the borders. If it's a concern for the incoming president, it's a concern for us. And I would say we should take the opportunity to secure the borders on behalf of Canadians, not because President-elect Trump has asked, or not even solely on behalf of securing the borders for all North Americans, but let's do it for Canadians when it comes to drugs and illegal migrants and whatnot. And I think that will go a long ways to a positive decision on January the 20th. But in addition to that, we need to engage at every level, and we're willing to do that alongside this federal government or the next, alongside other premiers, or on our own. And we will do all three avenues as we can, and are already.
Right. So I want to get to the border stuff in just one second, but Premier Doug Ford, who is the chair of the Council of the Federation, will be hosting you and the other premiers in Ontario this weekend and into next week. He has very loudly said, draw up the list, nothing should be off limits. He's talking about cutting off electricity exports into the United States, if that's what it takes. Is there unity at the Premier's table? If you're saying don't do this, Danielle Smith has taken a similar approach on the industries that are important to her province, where Premier Doug Ford is saying he's going pretty hard line compared to everybody else.
Yeah, certainly there is unity, but each province also has some tools that they can utilize. Doug, through Hydro Ontario, I believe they produce their own power and they ship it and sell it to the United States. And if he wants to or chooses to put a pause on that, that's a decision that he can make as a provincial premier. However, there is much unity with respect to the efforts we need to secure our borders. I think all premiers are in agreement with that, and urging the federal government to come out with a robust and very evident and visible plan on how we are doing that, and we're willing to assist where we can. And I think you've seen Premier Smith move in that space already, Premier Canoe, and we're looking at whatever some of the opportunities that we have to assist in that space as well. The second thing we need to do is to engage, to ensure that all elected American folks know that we produce energy, food, and manufacturing security alongside one another in spite of the 49th parallel. And we do that to ensure that we have that security here in North America, but we also do it for our allies around the world. And we don't do it for one another. We do it together, when we don't do it in spite of one another. And so we need to remember that, and we need to ensure we're driving that message home, like we did through the negotiation of USMCA, like we did when we were facing steel and aluminum tariffs, and like we did when we were facing country of origin labeling tariffs as well.
So at the First Minister's meeting the other night, there was a presentation to you and the other premiers from the federal government of what their response was to address the border, at least the initial response. Doug Ford said he was pleased with what he saw. Danielle Smith said much the same thing, suggesting it's a 5-point plan that's going to be unveiled in the fall economic statement on Monday. Where are you on that? Are you comfortable with what the federal government has presented to the other First Ministers in terms of how they're going to respond to Donald Trump's request for a better border?
Yeah, the discussion that we had was largely around securing our Canadian border, incoming drugs, precursors that are coming in that are giving people the ability to make drugs here in Canada and in North America, and then as well illegal migrants. And we need to continue to build a strong immigration policy around that discussion as well. But largely it was presented as a border security initiative, and I hope it is robust enough. And I would encourage the federal government that they can't be too robust in ensuring that our borders are secure. And as I think most premiers had said is where they can assist and help and enhance the efforts by the federal government. We're certainly looking for ways to do that. I think that's paramount. Whether people think that is an issue or not, our largest trading partner does, and so it is an issue for us, and we need to address it. And I would say it's an opportunity for us to do so. Second to that, we need to use all the contacts we have to engage.
No, there's no doubt about that. You need every American you can get on your side in this. Yeah. So, but look, given
so I was satisfied. Yeah, David.
Okay, well that's good to know.
Now some of the questions after the fact around export tariffs, they were never discussed on that call or any other call. That would leave me tremendously dissatisfied to have that discussion.
Yeah, well, that could just be contingency planning as opposed to their action plan. It's unclear to me at this stage. But I wonder though, Premier, like given everything that needs to be done to avert these tariffs or limit these tariffs, and given the time that is available in which to do it, why are you saying you think there needs to be a federal election? Do you think it needs to happen like right now, or wouldn't that delay the ability to respond to Donald Trump?
No, it'd be fine to have it, at any time. Sooner the better. Donald Trump has a strong mandate, probably the strongest mandate in recent history, as does the Republican Party in the House and the Senate. We have no such mandate bargaining from a Canadian position. And I think we should. And I think it would strengthen our position. And so, I think it is time for a federal election. We're beyond the 4-year window that Canadians largely think is the norm for a government to serve. And I think we would have a stronger bargaining position with whoever's representing us at that table with President-elect Trump and his administration to have a 4-year mandate the same as he has.
But just as a last question on this, Premier, if you look at January 20th as the deadline for the tariffs, which we have to take President-elect Trump at his word at this point. If you have an election now, you go into caretaker mode and you can't really respond to his demands. So should an election, I appreciate, you're a supporter of Mr. Poilievre, should it wait until at least we know what's happening with the tariffs? You know what I mean? Like if you pull the plug now, it's a real mess.
No, I think very much during the campaign, all the parties could really put forward what their platform is and how they are going to secure the borders, how they are going to address the concerns that not only the incoming Trump administration might have, but that Canadians might have as well. And so we have to go to election at some point in the next number of weeks or months. And, we might as well have somebody at that bargaining table, at that negotiating table that has the very same mandate that the incoming President-elect Donald Trump has.
Premier Scott Moe, we always appreciate the time. And if we don't talk to you again, you have a good holiday. Thank you, sir.
Thanks so much. Merry Christmas to you and your listeners if I don't see you, David.